like to call this meeting of City Council workshop on July 24th to order, please. Roll call.
Mr. Viera?
Here.
Dr. Vogt?
Here.
Mrs. Winnes?
Here.
Dr. Selly?
Here.
And I hereby certify this meeting has been published in the newspapers in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act and posted as required by law.
The first item on the agenda is the discussion of the vacation right-of-way along Third Avenue. Mr. Rowland?
Yes. Council Vice President, we, in your packet, you can see this is actually a request for a vacation that began probably in 2017. In 2017. It appears to me, and I was just speaking to Nick about it, that this was a part of the roadway that, right-of-way, that probably was left over at a time when they probably realigned Third Avenue and created a space that was on the other side of the sidewalk. It's certainly not needed for public use, and it will facilitate, I guess, sidewalk improvements.
Yes, there is a developer adjacent to the property. He will be incorporating sidewalk as well as other seating and other public amenities into the sidewalk at that location.
Correct, and you'll see also that the reason that it took so long to get this to council is because there was a Long Branch Sewage Authority pipe that they had to account for the easement along it, so it took some time for them to get through the process there, but you'll see that once this is done, there'll be an easement back to the Long Branch Sewage Authority for that pipe.
Any questions?
No, so it'll work out on our behalf, right?
Yes.
Let's press the cut and they'll take care of it now.
Correct. Yeah, otherwise, it's our property, we'd have to maintain it, and it's not something we're equipped to do. It's a way of just kind of getting a piece of property that we don't need off our hands.
Okay.
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 Okay. The next item is the Seaview Towers.
Seaview Towers, as you know, we've had a couple of presentations here about a new developer who would like to come in and take over that project. There were a number of significant discussions within the council about how that process would proceed, what the public benefits were going to be. There was a request by the developer to rezone, to change some of the bulk criteria. In the course of all of our conversations, I think Nick and I reached the same conclusion, kind of separately, that the best way for the council to control the process going forward is for this to be as part of a redevelopment area, so that we can do a redevelopment agreement. Something as simple as, there was a lot of discussion about when the towers were gonna come down. So we spent 6 weeks trying to figure out a legal mechanism that we could enforce their obligation to take those towers down at a certain period of time. And we came to realize that if it was in a redevelopment zone, we could just put it in a redevelopment agreement. Otherwise, it was much more complicated in terms of how it is that we do it. So we think that it's a mechanism to allow council to have much more control over the process of how the development, what goes there and how the development happens going forward. We're doing the study in-house. Nick is actually doing it in-house, so we don't need to go out to get a consultant to do the study and to do all of those things. And obviously, if you know anything about those buildings, you know that they obviously qualify under any definition of an area in need of redevelopment or blight. And that's our thought, and as council knows from dealing with a number of these projects, we have much more flexibility in negotiating things like public contributions to things when we are in a redevelopment area than we are if we're just dealing straight up with a zoning application. And Nick has been, I haven't, but Nick has been meeting with them to talk about what's gonna be there and what it's gonna look like, correct, Nick?
Yes, yeah, I just would like to note this is the first step in the process, declaring it in need of redevelopment. Then we will be working with the redeveloper on the eventual plan for the site, but this is a necessary step in the process for you to authorize the planning board to undertake the study. The planning board will conduct the study. As Lou said, it's obviously gonna meet the criteria for redevelopment. And then the next phase after that, we'll be working on the redevelopment plan.
Any idea of a timeline for any of this, Nick, or?
Well, the answer is that Nick's working on the study, so I don't think it's gonna take much more than, I don't know what the planning board's meeting cycles are, or when we can get to them, but certainly it'll be, this could come back to you this summer for the designation, would you think? I mean, there's notice requirements that we have to go through the process, so it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, the next planning board meeting, I believe, is August 20th, if I recall correctly.
All right.
So at that meeting, they'll authorize me to undertake the study. So I'll have it completed by the time we hit the September planning board meeting.
Anything else? Huh?
Nothing else on that?
Good.
Any questions? Okay, we're gonna have the review of the regular meeting agenda. Any questions?
I had questions.
Okay.
Can you explain the study for 17019 non-condemnation redevelopment area? What is that for?
What's the number, Rose?
170-19.
Authorization of the director of the planning.
I think that's the area, I think that's what we just talked about.
Oh, that's the same.
That's
Is
what we
there
just-
any way we can put the the street address on these so that we can, cause to me, lots of blocks mean nothing
Sure,
as part of the agenda.
yes.
Thank you. And what about 171-19, 131 Brighton Avenue?
So this is a development that, based upon the construction of the building, they have to put certain pilings in that will go under the right of way. So whenever we have anybody that is going to put something that onto public property, first, we're careful to make sure that obviously engineering and everybody has reviewed it. But more importantly, we wanna make sure that where the city is held harmless and indemnified in case there's any damage or injury to anybody as a result of their actions. And what you always have to be cautious about is that if somebody is going to build something that encroaches on your property, you always want it to be permissive, and the reason, in other words, we wanna give them permission to do it, because there's a concept in the law that's called adverse possession. So if I put my fence on your property, I'm your next door neighbor, and you know it's on your property, and you don't do anything about it, and I keep it there for 20 years, it becomes my property. But if you give me permission to put my fence on your property, then it's never adverse, so you never have that up. So if we're going to let somebody do something that's gonna encroach on the property, they always have to go through the process. In my opinion, the best practice is to give them permission.
Some water?
No, I got it here.
So,
Are they gonna?
what are they called, soldier pilings, Nick, is that what they're called?
Yeah, just, to put it in simpler terms, it's something to shore the building that will actually be located under the sidewalk.
Correct.
So it's not anything that would be visible in the right of way, it's not anything that,
Yeah, it's
anybody
underground.
would see, it's all underground.
And where's this at?
That's in
This is at the
corner.
old post
Family
office
Farms.
site.
Across from
Oh,
Family Farms.
okay. Alright.
And why is that necessary, Nick, just out of curiosity?
Well, this is necessary because the building was approved with the building right on the sidewalk. This was a necessary structural element. It's something that I believe we've learned from, and then as future applications come in, we'll be cognizant of this issue and require them to step back a little bit, so something like this isn't gonna be necessary in the future.
So
This is a
they're,
condition of their approval.
so they're right on the sidewalk, you said?
Yes.
And there's no way we can do anything about that now?
That was an approval that came before my arrival, it's already been approved, they have their planning board approval. So, like I said, it's something we can learn from in the future buildings that come in, we'll step them back a little bit. But it is a zone that permits a 0-foot setback, so it was within their right to build to that line.
So what does that mean then if you're walking down the street?
It would be nothing.
You would never see it,
It's underground.
it's all underground.
It's on.
But the building's gonna be right up on the sidewalk.
The
Right.
building will be right on the sidewalk, yes.
And will the sidewalks be closed during the construction like they were down on the other end of Brighton Avenue?
Yes.
Yes.
We got a temporary sidewalk in now that we put in. We blocked the parking, the fences up, the temporary fence, and we blocked the parking, and the sidewalk's now on the street. I don't know if you've been there, I walk there almost every day, so it comes in handy.
I've just seen the
because it was pre-existing? I mean, the post office used to be the same way, right? Yeah.
Well, it
I mean,
doesn't
the
have
post
any,
office came right to the sidewalk as well.
Yes.
it doesn't have anything to do with that the post office was on the sidewalk, just has to do in, you know, in the Brighton Avenue environment, we do want buildings that are on the sidewalk and create that streetscape and, you know, the aesthetics that come with a nice Main Street environment.
Yeah, but the footprint is pretty much the same as the post office is. It's right on the sidewalk.
Right. So you're suggesting perhaps changing it in the future, that there is a little setback, or there's something in front of the building being right up, butt against the sidewalk?
Yeah, as people come in and speak to me about potential projects, I definitely tell them that there is a desire to step the buildings back, not only for that issue, but to, you know, provide space for sidewalk tables, landscaping, you know, green elements, you know, things to add to the streetscape and to the building itself.
Guess there's nothing we can do.
Will they answer the question?
Answer my question. I don't like the answer, but yeah, answer my
Okay.
question.
Any other questions?
Yeah, could we just an overview of the details, on the Transit Village grant, it was 167 and 168, just an overview.
Sure. There's 3 grant applications. Our new engineer, Laura Newman, actually did these Friday night and Saturday morning. She was burning the midnight oil to get these in on time. There's 3 different applications. Resolution 167 is, and these are all New Jersey DOT
Right.
grants. 167 is for the Transit Village. It's for 3rd Avenue from Bowden, which is just south of the hospital, to Morris Avenue, for new sidewalks, curbs, curb ramps, paving, crosswalks, lighting, and landscaping, and also the roadway, mill and pave. And the request on that is $730,000. And there is no match on these. These are straight out grant applications. Kurt, am I right? There's no required match on these.
That's correct.
Okay. The other, and Laura identified these herself, brought back the choices, and some, one of them, the municipal aid, it was from a list that was provided by Stan Zuba's possible locations. Resolution 168 is Safe Streets to Transit. This is Loudon Avenue. Again, the 3rd Avenue improvement for Transit Villages starts at Loudon Avenue. Now that we're actually on Loudon Avenue from 3rd to Ocean Boulevard, and this calls for new sidewalks, curbs, ramps, stripings in the road, crosswalk, mill, and paving. And that's for $537,625. And then the 3rd element of these 3 is the municipal aid portion, and from the suggested list from DPW Director Stan Zuba, Laura thought that Woodgate Avenue from Park Avenue to Overlook Avenue Bridge would be a suitable location. And that's for a mill and pave, and that's in the amount of $725,995. So these are all worthwhile projects. We talked about the transit area, and she really thought that we should absolutely pursue these. These would be nice improvements. So keep our fingers crossed, see if we can land some of this money.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say, George. How competitive are they? What are our chances?
Kurt knows more than I do.
The most competitive one is the Safe Streets to Transit and the Transit Village. The Transit Village, it's very competitive. They looked at send it to the, I'll say the more northerly communities. It's been opened up lately because it's funded through the gas tax, so there's more money coming to the cities. The best we've been able to do is the general local aid and the roadway projects. That's guaranteed money. You'll get funding for that. The other ones are, you know, you might have to apply a couple years until you get in line and you get your funding. So, I have copies of each one. I have one copy of each one if anybody would like to see it. There's a map, there's a description, project description, so
Yeah, okay.
you're welcome to look at that.
Okay, good, thanks.
Thank you.
Anything else? Excuse me, anything else? Any more questions? Okay. I need a motion to close.
Wait, I'm sorry, Mary Jane, could I just add one other thing just about the meeting? Is somebody gonna bring up a response to the traffic, in the comments? Just in the public comment from the meeting last week? I'm just asking if anybody is gonna be addressing that
Well,
this week.
Captain Rizzuto is here if we have any questions.
Okay, just in a proactive way, you know, I mean, there were so many comments just to
Regarding-
in terms of concerns about traffic from the, in the public comment, part of, you know, our last council meeting.
Sure.
So just a response to, you know, that kinda says, we hear you, we're responding, this is what we're doing.
Sure.
That's what I was,
Yeah,
what I was
that's why,
referring
that's why you're here.
to. Okay,
Not fully familiar with what was said at the last meeting, but people briefed me offline and I'll have an
Okay.
answer by the time the meeting starts.
And
Okay,
George
okay.
has some statistics that were sent up to him as well.
Right, I had sent
Okay.
them, actually, Council President Dango asked for them, I sent them to him. You have those printed out, right, Mayor?
I had a two-sheeter, but I didn't have the whole thing
we
that
have-
was sent to Bill.
We have, I don't know, you have those?
On for the meeting. yeah.
Okay. good.
okay,
Yep.
good. I just thought that that would be a, you know, positive response to concerns, so.
Okay, is there anything else? I need a motion to close.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I need a motion to go into adopt a resolution to go into executive session for the following items, contract negotiations. Well,
So moved.
Second.
roll call?
Mr. Viera?
Yes.
Dr. Vogt?
Yes.
Mrs. Wittes?
Yes.
Dr. Sally?
Yes.